Okay, so I wanted to talk again about the main trim and how we progress over when the wind starts to pick up. So if people aren't on the rail, travelers up about a car length, step down one from the top, right? So about a car length down from the top. You trim the main on until the top tail curls behind, and then you keep going until the second one starts to go away. And then you just kind of find that spot, and you want it to be flowing about 90% of the time on the second one. So it's just thinking about it every way. It just loses attachment on the back side a little bit every once in a while, and then you know you've trimmed tight enough. But that thing still needs to be flowing about 90% of the time. Now, as the wind picks up and starts getting puffy, and everybody's on the rail now, you have to depower the boat. You still have to sail perfectly on the jib because that's the gas pedal. Right, that's your accelerator. That's what's keeping the boat going through the water well.
Right.
But you can't flip over. Right. We talked about on the J70 when you get a puff and it leans over and it comes back, the boat actually, because the keel working segment of the keel is not huge, you tend to slide sideways pretty quickly. I mean, you can see some videos where people just get to hit a puff and they actually slide about a half a boat length to leeward, even though their angle hasn't changed. So managing and keeping the heel angle the same, if you talk to the teams that are really doing well, that's their #1 priority, is keep the heel angle the same. So the person doing the main is got a challenge to make sure that you're depowering and powering back up the boat to try to keep the heel angle the same the whole time. So that's where, having the other legs person and do it tends to be better when it's puffy, when you got to do a lot of changes. And
it's better when it's puffy to have the second person do it. Yes.
Right, because unless you're got a pro and you're a dinghy sailor and you've done it like a million hours, where it's like a laser. You work it, you never cleat it, you can just feel it the whole time, and yes, no problem, right?
So the conversation would be puff in 3, 2, 1, ease.
Right.
Ease a foot.
Ease something. So let's talk about the sequence of that. So we have a couple of mechanisms to help us depower the boat in a puff. Traveler down. Right? Backstay, and then main sheet. And in the sequence of those is they have the least amount, like the traveler has the least amount of effect, right? And then the backstay, depending on how quickly you can get on it and take the bite out of it, has the second. And then obviously the main sheet's the biggest one to get through it. So as you're sailing upwind, you're going to know on average how can you get away with just pushing the traveler down a little bit. Well, nope, boat's flipping over too much. Okay, well then can I get away with it by pulling on some backstay enough?
Right.
Which, in the moderate puffs and lulls, because you got to let it back out again, you can do it with the backstay. Okay, but the point is, if you can't, you got to do it with the main sheet. Okay. Now.
Okay, so that would be traveler down, then backstay.
Yeah.
We're still tipping over. You got to ease the mainsail.
Right.
With vang on.
Correct. Right. You got to have the vang on because So let's talk about the effect of those 3 things on the rest of the sail plan. Okay.
That's what we're talking about this morning.
All right. So how do you depower the jib? Or let me rephrase that. If the forestay gets looser, it powers it up.
Powers up, right? Which you don't want.
Which in a puff you don't want. Traveler down keeps the forestay tension the same, right? Backstay on actually adds a little bit of forestay tension, right? Because you're bending the mast, you're flattening the main, and you're tightening the forestay.
Yes.
So that's a double win. If the puff isn't too big, okay? So now, if the puff tends to be too big, because these boats are tippy, you tend to have to go to the main a little bit. And if that's the case, then when you ease the main sheet, what happens? Forestay gets looser, right?
Yeah. Right.
So then the next thing you got to think about, well, how tight is my rig? Is my shroud settings? Where am I on the tuning guide? If I'm too loose, it's going to have more of a dramatic effect,
Mm-hmm.
right? Than if the rig is tight enough and I ease it, it's not going to have as dramatic of effect on the jib. Okay, so if you get to a situation where it is puffy and you're easing a lot, and you got plenty of backstay on, and the vang's tight because you don't want the main just to, you got to have the vang on when you're easing the main sheet. How's the rig? Is the leeward shroud still like really moving around a lot? Then the rig's too loose and you're giving a little bit away on the jib. So then I would probably take a step up, take a turn up on the rig,
Mm-hmm.
so that when you burp the main a little bit on the main sheet, the rig's tight enough so you're not losing a ton of force. You're going to lose a little bit, but
Mm-hmm.
again, not a huge. It's better than flipping over and rolling out and then getting back down again, right?
J70